Janet, there's someone on the phone, but I don't know who it is. I was looking that up, but
Yeah, I was going to say I can see the 338, but I don't know who that is.
yeah, and their phone is muted, so I'm going to check who that is.
Okay. Let's.
It looks like we do have a quorum.
Is David in there? He was gonna call from the car, I think, but I'm not sure.
And Emily's on, so we have a quorum.
Emily is on. Okay, great. Well, let's go ahead and jump right in on the agenda. First thing is the approval of the minutes from April. Any amendments, additions, questions on the minutes?
Nope.
No.
Nope. Okay, I think David had one, which he and I talked about earlier, but in looking at the minutes myself, I'm going to let that one ride. I think he just wanted to make sure some comments that he had made were included, and I don't think we put in that much detail, so I think it's fine. So I'm going to go ahead and ask for a motion to, we've got to do a vote on this one, right? On the consent. Okay, first off, let's do a quick approve the agenda as submitted, and we've got to do a roll call vote. So I'm voting aye. David? I don't hear. Emily, are you voting aye?
Yes, aye.
Aye. Okay, Barbara?
Yes, aye.
Aye. Tanya is not here. Chris?
Aye.
Aye. Daisy? Do we have Daisy?
She
We do,
shows
don't we?
up.
She's
Okay,
there.
and Janet? Janet,
Jenny. You need to unmute.
who needs to unmute? Janet?
Okay, aye.
Aye, okay, there you go, Janet. Okay. Thank you. And then we're going to move on from there to approving the consent agenda as submitted. That consent agenda includes the approval of minutes, pending gifts, and the statistical report. And once again, I'm supposed to do a quick roll call vote, I think, on that one. Aye, David? No, Emily?
Aye.
Barbara?
Aye.
Tanya's not here. Chris?
Aye.
Daisy? Daisy not answering yet. And Janet?
Aye.
Okay.
So,
And what do I, third one? Okay, yeah, that's just a blank. Okay, let's just jump right in then. We have no public comments that I know of. Anyone? No, okay. Then we'll jump right over to Clay or Ruth on the Library Friends for a quick report.
Sure, thank you. Can you all hear me okay?
We sure
Yes.
can, Ruth.
All right. So we did have a Zoom meeting for ourselves a couple weeks ago, and we didn't discuss terribly much in the way of business. We are looking to put together a electronic newsletter for later this summer.
Okay.
We won't be mailing it out like we had. I do not have a status of the gift for this past fiscal year that we have ended on the end of March. So I will need to follow up on that and advise Scott and Clay at the library about the status of that check. Other than that, we are just hanging tight, and we'll see how the library reopens and see what we can do to help out and what we can do to move forward with the Friends.
Great. Okay, Ruth, any questions for Ruth? No. Okay, Karen? Do we
Hi.
have Karen?
Yep.
No, okay.
Can you not see me? you guys see me?
Can, but
yeah.
can you see Karen?
We can
I
see.
don't for some reason.
Okay. Can you hear me as well?
Oh, there you
Yes.
are, Karen. Okay.
Okay. Thanks. So the foundation's kind of like the Friends. We're holding tight a little bit, I guess is a good way to put it. We've general business as usual. We've given out a few grants to library staff. One you heard about last month was the $3,000 for books to go out at the Richmond Public Schools food distribution sites. That seems to be going really well. And another grant for $1,000 for Yava for their planning this year. One of the changes that they made is that they're purchasing books for the teen judges. So the $1,000 is toward those books and some other materials for the program. We're in the process of moving some money to the library for some of our sort of housekeeping things that we do, $6,000 towards the payment of the archivists that work in special collections and some other small things. And we're also doing things like updating our investment policy and spending policy, both of which we hadn't touched for about 5 years, and making a few changes in finance committee to our investment portfolio, which, even though it's holding up pretty well considering the markets these days, we're tweaking it a little bit to be a little more resilient towards what probably is going to be continuing volatility for a while. So basically that's it. We're preparing a new 2-year fundraising plan and getting a lot of our housekeeping done.
Okay, that sounds good. Any questions for Karen?
Thank you.
No? Okay. Let's jump into the administrative reports. Scott, you want to, you're the big show today. Almost everything that we want to talk about to you. So.
Well, that's a big job.
It is.
So I've got a lot to report. First, I really want to start off by thanking all of the board members and the friends and the foundation who reached out to council members to let them know how much of an impact we will feel if the proposed budget goes through. So to those of you who did reach out, that was helpful. The council, though, their hands were pretty well tied with the situation that we're in. So the budget did go through, and the numbers that I have are the numbers as were proposed. So we're looking at a budget similar to what we had in FY18, which was created in 17. So we'll be, I'm not sure where all of those numbers are gonna line up yet, because they're still kind of working that through budget. But by next month, I'll be coming back to the finance committee and you all to discuss how we're going to manage that and how we're going to go forward. One of our biggest challenges is we are so short on staff. We have vacancies. We have about 15 full-time vacancies, which equates to about 20 positions.
Right.
And with the hiring freeze, it is just really difficult to get positions through the system because every position has to go to the CAO's desk. So there's probably 9 signatures and 9 departments, or many departments it has to go through. So that process is a challenge, and we have to do that with every position that we had in process when we closed to the COVID situation, and every position that's open subsequently. So that is something we're working on. But
Scott, and talking to you about that, it sounds like Hull Street is probably the most urgent right now, dealing with the lack of a manager.
So we don't have a manager at the Hull Street branch right now, and we have had a person who's been an acting manager, and we're going to have to address that because she can no longer remain as acting person. She had to deal with a family situation. So we're going to have to find a temporary solution for that. So we reached out to HR and we're trying to get an emergency temporary position filled. So I guess the saving thing is during this reopening going into phase 1, we're going to have limited services and limited hours. So we're going to be doing contactless pickup of book holds and requests. And we aren't going to have people in our buildings yet. We're also going to have limited hours. So we'll be open 10 to 5 Monday through Friday and 1 to 5 on Saturday. So with those hours, we're going to be able to staff that service pull the books that are requested, kind of get the buildings back in order, and run contactless pickup through phase one. Now, as we move into phase two, we're going to have to make decisions about how we're going to let people in the building, which buildings we can let people in. We're still working out those details, but through phase one, we'll be able to manage in the short term. But long term into phase two and phase three, we're going to have to get positions staffed. And I'm going to have to work with human resources to get those people in place. So that's going to be a short-term challenge. The long-term challenge will be once we get the final numbers with the budget and where the funding goes, is sorting out what we can fill, make those requests, and try to get those positions filled as soon as possible, and then determine what hours we can offer. Because we're looking at like a budget from FY18. So we took a hit to our books. You know, our books took a cut of about $57,000, which is about 10% of that budget. So we're going to have to make some tough decisions. So we'll get through it. But that's been the big thing. But your efforts to reach out to the council helps keeps our case going forward, because the budget in this next fiscal year, they're going to review it monthly. So there's an ordinance going through where the council is going to review it monthly. And as they see revenues come and go, they'll make adjustments on the fly to the budget. Whereas in the past, once the budget was set, it was really pretty much set in stone, and ordinances had to be placed to do it. So there's a whole procedure for how council will go forward in this fiscal year in handling the budget. So that's been kind of the big thing.
Okay.
The reopening plan, I think there was a copy of it in the board report. What questions do you all have on that?
No, I don't have any real questions on the reopening plan. I think, David, Scott, if you could let me know, are we still looking at June 1 based upon what the mayor did yesterday? Everything good for the bringing staff in and spacing them enough and so on?
Well, that's what our staff has been. We have daily daily video conference calls through Slack, and we discuss this plan. We talk about all the different scenarios and situations that we're going to have coming up through phase one, phase two, phase three, answer all those questions. And our library managers have really done a wonderful job figuring this out. But it is a dynamic situation. And 2 weeks ago, we were ready to go into phase one and turn this on, but we got a 2-week delay as the mayor requested from the governor.
Right.
The mayor did send the governor a letter requesting some leniency on how you go into phase one with certain businesses. But we are ramping up like we're going to open on June 1st.
Sounds like the governor said no, and it doesn't affect us regardless, right? I mean, we're still looking at the same date and getting rolling.
Right.
Yeah.
So the way I understand it is the order for phase one ends today or tomorrow, and then the governor's new order will take place, and the city would move into phase one starting on Friday or this weekend, and then we would start business on June 1st.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's if so all things go well, we don't have any changes. I'm assuming we're going to return people to work on June 1st. That's what we're working towards. And as that plan indicates, we'll have that split schedule to try and minimize contact with people and protect operations and keep people socially distanced. So we've got those schedules in place. We're ready to return staff on June 1st, and then June 3rd, we'll turn on the curbside service, because we're going to need to kind of clean stuff up, get things going, get people trained as to how we're going to run curbside and figure this whole thing out. When we don't have people in, like some of the staff will come in and maybe work an abbreviated, not a full schedule. So full-time people will be working 20 to 25 hours. Then they'll be either teleworking or doing other tasks through phase one. So
I have one question, Scott.
Mhm.
Doing phase one, do you have enough PPE equipment for your staff?
So that's one thing that Cheryl's been working on. She and staff have really been, Cheryl and Miss Wilmore from North Avenue have kind of been our leaders on helping us get the PPE and the cleaning supplies and all those provisions that we need for opening up. Cheryl, do you want to give a little report on what you've been able to get and what we've been able to supply our branches in terms of what they'll need when we reopen?
Sure. Gloves is a challenge for us.
Yeah, gloves are hard
And
to find.
gloves is a challenge for everyone. What we've done with that is that we're using reusable gloves right now, where the staff will have to, just like washing their hands. So they're using that for the curbside process. And so we got a lot of disinfectants. That's pretty much out there. We had Lysol, so that's like liquid gold. So we have that. Like I said, a lot of wipes, hand sanitizers. I'm waiting for forehead thermometers for if staff needs. We're not allowed to offer that to the public right now, but at least we have it for if staff needs it.
So if we have a staff member who suspects they have a
Right.
fever, we can do a check of them.
Yes, and so we ordered cloth masks. We did order disposable masks. So I ordered over 2,000 of those. And the N95 masks. So our staff has 3 types of masks that they can use. And
So we've given every staff member 3 cloth masks. So
yes,
we have 3 of these high cloth masks. So they all have some cloth masks that they can reuse and wash. And then we have some disposable masks. So if people forget their mask, we have a mask that they can use. Or
Right.
sometimes these masks irritate people's faces or they're uncomfortable with them. So maybe this mask will work better. So we have different options for them to protect them. And then Cheryl has hand sanitizer. So we're really going to focus on those provisions that we're going to provide folks. And if they have masks of their own, they're welcome to wear those as well. But we're going to require that all of our staff wear masks when they can't socially distance or physically distance. So if they're in a situation where they're going to be, waiting on the public or running curbside, they need to be wearing a mask. Like I'm in my office right now, I have the door closed, I don't have my mask on.
Right.
We're gonna encourage people to wash their hands and and we're gonna do our best to keep everybody physically distant. So that's why we're limiting the number of people we're gonna have in the branches at any one time, because some of our branches are kind of small. So 3 people in a branch is probably enough to run curbside. And we also didn't want to bring all of our staff into a location all at once, because if you have everybody in there at once and somebody gets diagnosed and they get a quarantine and are waiting for a test, I'm going to have to I'm going to have to send everybody home until they get that result back from that test. So we're trying to split our staff so that we can maintain a continuity of operations. So
Right.
you have decals as well, the 6 feet apart decals.
Right. So lots of signage that'll indicate keep your distance. So those are, Cheryl, those are signs that go on the floor. So we've got those posted everywhere. Every branch has got some of those.
They have those and the managers will put them down.
Right.
Okay.
And I think that covers, is there anything we forgot, Cheryl? Gloves, masks, cleaning? How about that hydrostatic cleaning that the city's doing right now? Isn't that what it's called?
It's true. The hydrostatic cleaning that Department of Public Works is doing for all the city buildings, including the library.
So our buildings have been scrubbed a lot during the 10 weeks. So they've been scrubbed many times. And when we open, we're going to have increased cleaning as well, as much as we can. We're not going to be able to sanitize everything all the time, but we're going to keep things as clean as possible. So it's kind of our strategy for how we're going to handle it when we return our staff. But then when we bring people back in the building in phase 2, those are pieces that we're going to have to figure out. One of the concerns, like, and I think you all heard yesterday, the governor is requiring that people wear masks inside of buildings.
Mhm.
And if you dig deeper on that, it's more of an encouragement from the governor than an enforcement issue. So what I'm going to recommend and what we are planning to do is post at the front door that we're asking everyone to wear masks. If they don't have masks on, we're going to ask them if they could please wear a mask. I don't believe we can kick anyone out because they're not wearing a mask, because some people may not be able to get a mask, or they may not be comfortable wearing a mask. And I don't know that we can call the police and have them arrested for not wearing a mask. I don't know that, and maybe you all need to discuss this. If you want to exclude people from our buildings because they're not wearing a mask, that's a discussion that maybe you all want to.
And that's really a phase 2 reopening, right?
Right. And with phase 2, I've seen different numbers on it. I don't know if it's finalized, like gatherings of less than 50 people is where it's at, or there's all kinds of limitations. I don't know exactly how it is, but if you, let's say it's less than 14 people in a confined space. So once you figure in staff, and then also they have to socially distance. So I don't know how we would allow 50 people in some of our buildings and keep them 6 feet apart.
Right.
So maybe you do half that number or a quarter that number, and you gatekeep the front door and say, okay, we've got 15 people in the building now, we're socially distanced. One leaves, one comes back in.
Right.
That could be something that we do. But that's a discussion point for y'all to kind of consider. That's what we were thinking about in terms of that. Some of our locations may be able to open, like Maine. We should be able to open Maine in phase 2. All of our staff wearing masks. We're asking patrons to wear masks. We've got all the signs on the floor, the hand washing. And then we just control the space as best we can, I mean, you saw it all in the report, so.
Yeah.
Hey, Scott, this is Laura. Can you hear me?
Sure can. How you doing, Laura?
I'm good. Hi, everybody. Make sure I think they've sent it out by now, but I'm not sure, the wavelength training the city sent out. So we want to make sure that all the employees, it's going to be mandatory that they do it. And that lays out
Okay.
a lot of the protocols you were discussing, hand washing,
Well, that's really good to know, Laura. I didn't know that they had a training like that. We can absolutely incorporate that in there, and that would be another way to make sure that everybody knows, everybody has that knowledge base. So
Yeah. Good idea.
Scott, I had a question for you.
Yes, sir.
I would think that the health of our employees would trump somebody not being comfortable wearing a mask. I mean, I don't know about my fellow board members, but if Costco and Lowe's and some of these other stores are looking out for their employees and everybody's health like that, that's something we should consider.
Yeah, David, I agree with you. A question I would have, and once again, we're not at that phase yet, obviously, because we're not bringing patrons in. But when they do start to come in, if we mandate masks, and I don't think that's a bad idea at all, what do we do about someone who doesn't have a mask? Do we have disposables available? Can we get enough of them? There's some equity issues that you got to deal with on that. If they don't, refuse to wear a mask completely, whether offered or not, then do we bar them? And I think that's a decision that everyone needs to think about, and we can discuss it now if y'all want to, or we can hold till we're ready to look at phase 2. I think that Cheryl may be able to guide us a little bit on that with, will she be able to get enough masks that if we need to have some for, for patrons to use, would that be possible? Or right now, is that not even a, conceivable thing?
Well, we had this discussion this morning, as a matter of fact, and right now masks is not easily to get.
Sure.
And gloves. So we're sort of short on that for the public. I've asked Scott if he can reach out to other agencies to maybe donate masks to us, or other organizations rather. That would be helpful. And I know security our security cannot enforce public to wear a mask, unfortunately, like Costco and the other private sectors. That
Okay.
be an ordinance, but we're definitely open to donations.
Okay, and I think you've answered the question then. If we can't enforce it, we can't enforce it. So whether we decide to require it or not is somewhat immaterial. What we're going to do is encourage it then. Is that right?
Yeah.
That makes sense? Okay.
And that basically boils down to the public-private status of
Sure.
institutions, because we're completely within our rights to tell staff you can't come to work unless you're wearing a mask. We can require a temperature take every day. We just have to maintain confidentiality regarding those things.
Right.
Even, as small as that seems, confidentiality does come into play. But yeah, the part that gets a little fuzzy is when we're looking at a public institution instead of 7-Eleven or
Sure.
something of the sort.
Well, and you know what I would suggest, I think that Cheryl is probably right on target with that, so I wouldn't second guess her at all. The other thing is that we're not the only city building that's going to be opening up at some point here. And I'm sure that the mayor is going to have some statement on that. He may feel that he can bar people, in which case we can talk about it, or he may be able to come up with a supply of masks or something. I don't know. But I'm sure that we could come up with an answer on this one, and it may well be taken out of our hands when the phase 2 openings are announced.
That's well put, Bill. We can look at what DMV is doing and other customer facing and just model after them.
I think so.
The question that I had on that issue is the health department an option for securing masks for other public agencies as well?
So in the city of Richmond, the fire department has been the lead on procuring masks and distributing masks for the city. So they've pulled down a bunch of masks. I think 20,000 masks they've purchased through the city, and the mayor's been distributing them throughout town, which has been great.
So maybe they'll be able to supply some for the buildings as they open up.
Right, and that would be, and David's point is well taken. I mean, I wish we could provide masks to patrons who come in, because we have folks who they can't get masks. It's a challenge. So if we could provide masks and offer them a mask, I think that would be a great solution. And that's what many of the branch managers are saying. Yeah, can we give them the masks that we have? Because you've given us 250 masks for our employees when they forget, or that sort of thing. And I said, well, no. I don't know how sustainable that is, because I mean, I would love to be able to provide masks for people, but I just can't sustain it. And so I am going to reach out to the fire department and see what we can do. But all the city agencies are having this challenge. DSS, City Hall, they're just going to open the first floor. They're going to ask people to wear masks. I don't know if they're going to be able to compel people to wear masks. They have the Parks and Rec department for the last several weeks has been running a drive-through farmers market that moved to North Side. So at Bryan Park, they've had many people come to the farmers market, and they are enforcing mask wearing as much as they can if people are getting out of their cars and walking up. But it's the security that they have, and then they have police there, and the police can stand beside the security person, but they can't make arrests of people who refuse to wear masks.
Sure.
So,
okay, well, we'll just have to deal with that one as it rolls out, but I think looking for supplies for that is an important thing, so.
Right. Yeah, we've had to work through a lot of issues. The whole thing about how this virus transmits through surfaces, dealing with that issue. And as we've gotten more information on that, that seems to be decreased, that it's less contact through surfaces are causing it. So that's kind of been a relief. We're still going to proceed with all caution with our books. We're going to quarantine our books for 72 hours, which is about 3 times as long as you need to based on the information that we have. So.
All right, Scott, I had a question on that being books and paper. I went on 2 websites and it says it can live on paper for 5 days. So what what source did we go with 3? Is that something new or?
So CDC came out with some numbers last week, and I think CDC said 24 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
CDC has been pretty clear, I think, on that one. I mean, they came out with something again today that said, trying to clarify, they're not saying it can't be transmitted that way, but it's much less likely.
Less likely, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's a reasonable 72 hours, I think, is reasonable, unless,
Yeah.
Okay. Scott, did you want to talk about some of the, let's see, the finance things that you sent out to everyone a little while ago about the law library, special accounts?
So late last week, the auditor's office completed their report on review of the special funds. I sent out that draft of that report to the finance committee, and then we've sent it out to all of you. I don't know if you all had a chance to look at it. There's an executive review, and then specifically on page 13 and 14, they address the law library funds, and they make some recommendations that the library get some training to find the information that we need to reconcile the law library income and expenditures. And then council is going, or the budget and finance are going to have an ordinance going through to correct the deficit in funding that's been created over the last 7 years. So if that ordinance pass, it will essentially kind of reconcile that account and start afresh with special funds at zero and budgeted towards what we need to do going forward.
Okay.
So if council approves that, then they would make a transfer from the general fund to reconcile that account. And I've attached that ordinance that is working its way through council. So you can read through that, and that was crafted by budget and finance to address the problem as recommended by the auditor.
Okay.
So,
and I think when you look at that, sort of I would recommend ignoring the negatives about the, library staff should have looked at this, should have known how to do that. I think there's a certain amount of CYA and the auditing and finance staff going on there. That there's been a lot of requests and a lot of attempts by the administration and Scott's team to get that information repeatedly. And it just seems to be a constant refrain. And David and I know both have asked him about it. And Daisy, those of us have been on the board a little longer. So ignore that. But I think the important thing is that we will be facing a slightly different situation going forward, because while we've had that money sort of there, and we've been saying, well, we think this is what we should be getting, and they're letting us spend it. Now we've got to know that it's there before we can spend it. Right, Scott?
Yep.
Going forward.
Bill, thank you for acknowledging that, because Scott's being really nice, but maybe I can be the bad guy for a second. I can't tell you how vexatious and absurd that is to us when 2 directors and 1 interim director spent a tremendous amount of time trying to get this situation rectified, and
absolutely
we got no satisfaction whatsoever, and so that it rubs against the grain for that reason. And I really appreciate you acknowledging that.
Oh, you're welcome.
We did our darndest.
No, we know that, and frankly, the only things I'm concerned going forward on it, Scott and I've talked, and we're going to have to, even though it may not be easy to get that, we're going to have to be checking periodically to see those funds as they come in. If they don't come in, we're going to have to follow up on it. We're going to have to adjust the budget, particularly for law library related items, based upon the cash flow coming in on it. And third, David is going to do a little background check just to make sure that we are getting full credit, a little bit of matching up the number of cases with the $4 per case to make sure that, that nothing is slipped by anywhere as far as payments that we should be getting going forward, at least. Is that right, David? I can't hear David, but.
David,
he's on mute.
Oh,
that's
there he goes.
There's got to be whoever cuts the check that sends to the city. I mean, to me, it seems like basic math. If we send you a check for 110,000, then I want to see 110,000 on the city books passing through ostensibly.
Yeah. But
Anyway,
up to this point, Scott, Clay, nobody in the RPL system has been able to see those checks. You know, this is this is out there, and take our word for it from finance. Really, oh yeah, we're on top of this, and it's so I don't know that it's just as simple as matching the checks. I think at some point we need to get an idea of, you know, has anything changed? Are we still getting $4 per case? Have the case counts gone down? Why is it lighter? Are they waiving fees in any way in the courts in the city? And if when they waive fees, do they also waive the $4 fee that we're supposed to get? You know, all those kind of questions.
Ron Reagan said it best: trust but verify.
Yeah, I'll agree. Okay, so the law library, I think we've covered that. Cheryl, we were on you, and Scott, I'm going to bounce back in. I know this is your portion, but I'm going to ask Cheryl while I'm thinking of it to maybe touch on the other facilities things that you and I have been discussing.
Yeah, Cheryl. Yeah, we can go ahead and move on. That's special funds, unless there's anything else with that. That pretty much is my full report, unless there were other questions from what I distributed. I mean, the main thing that we've really been focused on is getting everybody back to work and making sure everybody's safe. And you know, David's point, we want to bring people back cautiously, and we really care about their safety and health.
Right. I think we're all with you on that. So, okay, so the two things that I think in your report that I'd like to touch on a little bit longer. One is asking Cheryl for just a quick update. I understand that the building is in better shape. Preventive maintenance is getting handled. That a lot's been done while things have been shut down.
Yes, sir. What has been happening is we've had painting done. We painted the main entrance staircase at Main, and it's a beautiful color. So we've been painting and putting up a little bit of signage there on the columns. Also, DPW has been changing lights, ballasts. They've been really working hard at doing that, make sure that the buildings are illuminated. Also, they've been working on HVAC throughout different branches, and especially Maine.
I think didn't North Avenue and Gitter Park get a lot of work done?
No.
No?
No.
No, just,
That's
But
okay.
they've been working at all the branches on their HVAC, the controls, right?
it's mostly at Maine. It's
Okay.
mostly Maine for that. They've been doing like regular maintenance, like for instance, Gitter Park, compressors down. So they're able to go in there and work on that. Broad Rock, that has been maintained. Their HVAC, their compressor was replaced. And just changing lights throughout the system. That has helped a great deal. Verizon is still working. They're still doing they've put up the towers is on the roof. And last week they had their trucks out there connecting everything with what they have to do with their connections. And where they are at their phase, it's pretty much toward the end of installation with Verizon.
Okay.
So thank goodness the city of
That's
Richmond has been going to different locations and doing maintenance.
Cheryl,
Okay.
did the placement of the towers affect things architecturally or visually? Nobody was sure how far back from the edge of the roof they would be placed.
Well, I can see it from Franklin. You can see it from Franklin,
Okay.
but architecturally, that's about it.
Yeah.
All right.
Probably out of our control also on that one.
Yeah.
Thank you, Cheryl. Hey, okay, so I said there were two things, and now I'm going to go into the second and third of the two. So if you apologize for that. ILC, Scott Just a quick one. It's going forward beautifully, it sounds like, but you mentioned that ILC is going to give us the ability to inventory when we have people in on phase one.
Yeah, right. So the new library catalog, that was complete. We finished that. So it's now no longer living on a server in City Hall. It's existing in the cloud, software as a service on a server in Atlanta, Georgia. So all of our data is now there, and we're operating our online catalog that way. That was completed. And then so once they got it working production server, then we did an upgrade of it. So they updated it with all of its patches and service packs to kind of bring it up to the more current operating system underlying things. So they kind of did some maintenance on that. And now we've started to install some of the added features that we will be getting, that we got as part of this, this RFP ILS upgrade. So the first two things that we went for were mobile search, which allows us to operate the online catalog in a web interface. So through a web connection. So we would no longer need to connect with an Oracle database and proprietary software. We can operate the online catalog and circulation through a web interface, which is which is great because now we can operate it on an iPad or a laptop through an internet connection instead of a dedicated secured line. It still will be secured through HTTPS, but it's a real move forward. Allow us to do a lot of things. So we can sign up people for library cards out in the community easier. We can we can check out books in the stacks. And then one of the features is inventory. In the past, when we would do inventory, we had to have a computer plugged into the network and run proprietary software to do this. With the web circ, we can have that connection through an iPad and use a Bluetooth scanner. So it should streamline inventory and help us do more accurate inventory going forward. So that'll be something that that can be a task that we'll start to work on as soon as we get people back in the building and then going forward. So that's a real added feature.
Right. As you said, that'll actually work well with social distancing. We can put some people in stacks doing things or in the books, while others are at desk and areas. So that helps.
Another feature that we'll turn on is we'll be able to text message our users if they have a book on hold. So if a book comes in for you, instead of getting an email or a telephone call or we'll be able to text message you if you want to opt into it. So that's a feature that we'll be rolling out. And then the biggest thing that we'll get further down the road is it's called Enterprise, which is a much better search interface to our online catalog. So search algorithm will change. And I don't know, many of you have probably done searches on the catalog and you type in Sound and the Fury and you get no hits. It's because of the way the software interfaces. So that should be upgraded once we do this upgrade of Enterprise. So that we're hoping to roll out in the next 6 weeks.
Okay, and then the final one that I had sort of in general, Laura, do we still have you there, Laura? I hope we do. She's muted. But the RFP, my understanding is for the architectural RFP, it's still on hold right now. It's sort of bouncing back and forth between procurement and legal. And I think, Laura, you were going to look into that for us. I don't know if you have anything on that more or not.
I do. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. First, I want to say that Cheryl's backyard is beautiful and I want to go and sit there.
Me too.
Thank you.
So I think it went to DPU for, I guess, review. Was it DPU or Public Works or something? Procurement had it. I could have that wrong, but is that right?
It's been bouncing around there. Yep.
Yeah. So I think they have finished with their review. I spoke to the attorney who's reviewing it in our office yesterday because I knew you would ask me, Bill.
Thank you.
And she expects or hopes that she'll have her review completed in the next 3 weeks. I've asked our office to make it a priority because I know this thing has been going on forever. And so I'm doing what I can.
Thank you. Okay, well, we'll look for next month with some good news on that.
Okay.
Okay, let's jump to Daisy. I don't know that she's got a finance committee report. I think that Scott's probably covered that. Daisy, want to say anything about that? And I think Daisy is actually communicating via text through Jonna. So Jonna, does Daisy have anything she wants to say?
She hasn't said anything, but nothing to add.
Nope. Okay. Then we'll jump over to David. David, before we let you jump into governance, two quick things for you. I need your eye on approval of the agenda. And once again, of those two, here are the remaining two of those two. I need your approval on the minutes, and I need your comment if you do have a comment to make on the minutes. So,
Yes, can you hear me?
Back to you. Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm sorry I took video off, depriving you of my handsome self because I'm eating up prodigious amounts of data since I'm not in a Wi-Fi area and I'm driving.
Yep.
I did have one addition to the minutes. We discussed last time the fact that the branches don't have charging stations at the tables and they had to go behind the counter, and Scott was going to check into that and see what we could do. And I just wanted to have it recorded in the minutes that we did indeed discuss that.
Okay, did you want that added to the minutes? And if so, Jonna, can you do that? Anybody have any objection?
I'll review the last, is this for the electronic meeting at the last meeting? Or the one before that in February?
I believe it was the last meeting.
Okay,
The electronic one.
I'll review the minutes again and see where that came up in.
Okay.
So add it whichever timestamp was appropriate. I believe it was the last one.
Okay.
Okay, so David, let's throw this over to you for governance, and I'm going to get you to go through it fairly quickly because we've got about 10 minutes.
I'm nothing but brief. Last night, council had a paper to consider to remove Tanya. Oh my God, I'm embarrassed. I cannot remember Tanya. Anyway, Tanya to have her removed. Francis, thank you. To have Francis removed from the board because of lack of participation. Someone, an unknown person, requested that the paper be withdrawn and considered at a later date. Reached out to Chris Hilbert during the meeting, and he was unhappy when he had heard that we'd already submitted a replacement. I'm sorry, that's two different topics. He rescinded his withdrawal from the paper, and they are going to vote on that June 8th. So it's not being put off indefinitely. There's a firm date of June 8th, and he's going to press the issue, and hopefully we'll have that slot opened up. We have an issue with, sorry, I'm trying to drive and talk. We do have an issue with boards and commissions. They're in a gray area with COVID going on. They told us our deadline for submitting nominees for board replacements was March 15th. Which, as you may guess, is not a good thing. And Mr. Hilbert, who is the boards and commissions council member, is also going to look into that because obviously boards cannot do without board members because of COVID. So we're going to look for guidance from them, and he seems fairly intent on getting answers. So as I get them, I'll share them with you.
Okay. So David, let me sum real quickly a couple of things you and I talked about. So we have recommended Brent Graves to the council. We're waiting for action on that. And David, that's going to take place at the June or the July meeting?
It's my understanding he's taking up the Tanya Francis issue, removing her from the board at June 8th.
Okay. Yeah.
And as far as Brent Graves on the open slot, because we do have one open slot, we had submitted Brent Graves in time for council to consider him, and that was not on their agenda. So that is the other issue that I'm going to try and be put on the docket for June 8th as well.
So we're going to shoot for that for June 8th.
Correct.
We hope to open up the spot, Tanya's spot, on June 8th. At that point, we'd like to talk about maybe filling that. My recommendation is, and we'll pass information along, David, you should have it, is that Gail Warner be strongly considered for that. Gail is a former chair of the library. She is, from my exposure to her, more competent than either of the two that have followed her, one of whom is me. So,
Well, her
She's very-
institutional knowledge is important too, as well as her background as a librarian. Wasn't
Right.
she the librarian at Richmond? Do you remember? Anybody remember?
She was at
What was the name?
University of Richmond.
Gales
Yeah.
Warner.
Gales Warner.
It's University of Richmond.
You
Yeah,
are.
what's the thing?
Yeah, Gail, I think one of the things about Gail is she's got great institutional knowledge. I think she led the search when Scott was hired, et cetera. And the other thing I would say about Gail is that she just has such a passion for this, that she's an ideal one to have in there to head up things, whether it's, leadership in that or facilities. She drove us through the renovation of all the branches. And did a wonderful job on that. So anyway, I think we all need to look at that. And we, of course, want new blood. But I think as we roll out some of the older blood, that bring a little bit of it back in is not a bad thing with Gail, maybe. And then the other thing is we've got 5 applications for some spots that will be opening up. So we'll be able to look at those. At the moment, with council's slowness on it, my belief is that we need to wait until council starts, until they act on these 2 open ones right now, before we worry about replacing
Outgoing.
outgoing members who are David and
Daisy,
I guess. So we'll work on that as we get a little further. In the moment, we're going to see if we can just keep them running along. They're on board until July anyway, so we're good for a bit. Okay, David, is that a
That's a good summary. Yep.
But okay.
That's where we are as of right now.
Okay. I have no unfinished business. Does anyone else have any they want to bring up?
Now turn right.
Now, how about any new business that anyone would like to bring up? Okay, before we adjourn, I'm just going to say, just real quickly, Scott has been great keeping me informed. I probably have not been doing quite as much on that with all of you. I will try to do that. But a lot of what's going on is waiting on the council and waiting on, COVID-related openings, things like that. I think the staff has done a phenomenal job of getting good work done in the facilities while we've been closed down. They've set us up to go forward when we open up. I think we're going to open up in a way that is safe for our employees, while also giving us, good ability to service our patrons. And I will mention two other things before I wrap, and that's one that I was surprised. And if you haven't looked at the details on the agenda that came out, or the packet that came out, I was surprised at how many people are using Wi-Fi despite the libraries being closed. And I just think that's interesting. And it's a reminder of how people really are relying on the library when we still have 500 people a month using Maine with the building locked up. That tells you something. And secondly, I forgot, this is totally unrelated, but Emily, I don't know whether you heard from Karin about this afternoon's meeting of the foundation. And if you didn't, maybe Karin can pass that information along. I'm hoping you can do the Zoom attendance on that as the libraries.
Thank you, Bill. I think you're right. I probably did not include Emily on that. It's on June 10th, and I will send that information to you just in a bit.
Okay, so just you'll send that out to Emily. Just send that out to Emily, and then ignore my response. I may be able to make June 10th. I'm not sure. I'm going to be out of town then, but I may be able to sign in from where I am. Okay.
All good. Okay.
Okay, any other questions, or can I get I guess we don't need to do a motion to adjourn, do we? We just adjourn at this point.
Just adjourn.
Okay. Hey, if no one else has anything, thank you all for your continued support and service on this. And we'll talk to you in a few weeks at least.
Okay.